Dakota Gold Mysteries contain mature content including violence, sexual situations, alcohol, drug and other substance use, and profane language. This episode also includes mind control and manipulation.
It was a cold day in Cloud City. Every day's a cold day this high up. We were well into the second half of the year, nearly at the end of the ride at the gravity well, and every strut, support and doorway was jeweled with methane ice. I stroked deeper into my anchor and wished I'd indulged in an insulated breather. By the time I left Valentine's apartment, I was rich as several questions and poor in multiple degrees of certainty. According to my client, only a few days had passed since she'd chosen to leave Valentine's employment and go freelance. But by Val's estimation, it had been more than half a year. My brother is many things, but a liar is not one of them. At least, when it comes to me. I had no such certainties about my client. But, says you were lying. Why? It was such an easily discovered falsehood, one that would only muddy the water and delay my investigation. And she had been clear that delay was undesirable. On the other hand, what if she were telling the truth as she perceived it? If she had experienced a glitch while transferring into the Soma, then woken up in an abandoned clinic, but said engagement and awakening had in fact occurred 9 months ago. Or, yet another possibility. The transfer had occurred 9 months ago, but she'd only woken up yesterday. Or perhaps hiring me with misdirection, I was intended to flounder. But why? And on top of that, what about the other two Soma? Did they even exist? Was she double-sleeved at all? Or had the situation been rectified somewhere in the missing time? All questions that needed to be posed to Miss Webb herself. But before arranging a second meeting with my client, I needed to investigate the presumed crime scene.
Arriving. Spoke 24, Zone 73A, Renward.
The address Roxanne had given me for the disappearing swap shop was in a sector of the city whose defining characteristics was an extreme lack of defining characteristics. It was mostly commercial, with a few scattered individual multifamily houses. Streets and pathways were well enough maintained, with trash collected and graffiti washed away, eventually. The kind of sector you walk through 1,000 times, never really noticing anything about it. The perfect spot for a sleeving clinic that had most of its work off the books. I caught the rail down a floor from Val's, his level being too up city to offer public transit stops. It had been almost full when I got on, but by the time I arrived at my stop, only myself and one other passenger remained. I'd noticed them immediately. They'd gotten on several stops after me and stood out, even in the crush of bodies and PPE. I wasn't sure if they were wearing a highly modified corpus or a purpose-built Soma, but either way, it was not off-rack. It smelled blue. I forced myself to relax. Not every defensive morph was law enforcement. Not all law enforcement had sentry upgrades. Like as not, the passenger wouldn't notice me unless I drew attention to myself, which I was not going to do. All the same, some training's never forgotten. I ran the risk assessment. Wearing what was apparently the same protective outer garments as anyone planning to travel through Cloud City's caustic environment, said garments actually non-functional. Retrofitted face, titanium gas exchange valve subbed for the mouth, parabolic supplemented ears, eyes grilled over with additional nictating membranes. On the whole, her body is out of place on the commuter rail as a roach in Valentine's sitting room. And their presence likely meant nothing at all. Or at least, nothing that applied to me.
Spoke 24, Zone 73A, Rimward. Doors opening.
Proving that I had allowed myself to be overtaken by paranoia, they didn't get off at my stop. I put them and their strange morph out of my mind for the moment. There were much more pressing problems to address. Ones that were actually relevant to the case.
Spoke 24, Zone 73A, Rimward. Please disembark.
The silence of the street closed around me like decom curtains as I stepped off a rattling, screeching railcar and into the deserted street. Sounds already muted by the protective layer of my anchor hood were deadened into mere mutters. Even my own footsteps sounded hollow and far away. I found myself walking faster, as though my feet were eager to take me somewhere warmer, more alive. Roxanne's putative clinic did not fit the bill. It had also not been a clinic in quite some time, if ever. The building itself was as she described, a large, windowless, one-story rectangle of metallic quick-build siding, oversized roll-up door set under an overhang of one wall, with a more normally proportioned aperture next to it. But that was where reality veered sharply away from her account. It was in bad shape. Whoever owned the place had not kept up on the spray ceiling, and the Cloud City fog had eaten holes in the quick build, turning entire swaths of wall to cheese grater. The big door wasn't locked, but corrosion and filth had jammed it just as effectively as a chain. And while the handle of the smaller door turned easily at first, it then fell off in my hand. I gave both apertures a few sound kicks, but neither seemed inclined to give, and the impacts boomed so resoundingly, I thought better of continuing to try. In the end, I managed to gain entrance via a scramble up a rather precarious tower of boxes and a slither through a large, but not quite large enough spot of corrosion. It wasn't any better on the inside. I imagine it could have been a swap shop once, possibly even recently. But the elements, roaches, and at least 3 different Cloud City gangs had done their worst, leaving the inside covered in droppings, graffiti, and crystallized ammonia. And who's there? Hello? There was nothing in the large central space save for a few broken chairs, the charred remains of several self-heating meal tins, and a truly enormous pile of rubbish heaped against one wall. I made a cursory examination of the pile, nudged broken plastic and crumpled cement aside with the toe of my boot, turning up the top layer of trash to reveal, well, more trash underneath. It didn't seem as though the room had any information it wanted to share with me. But a pair of doors on the far wall beckoned with the promise of unrevealed secrets. I started towards them. That was when I realized I wasn't alone. I didn't think I'd been followed off the rail. But then, the misplaced morph from the train drifted up from the unquiet depths of my thoughts, and my hand began to creep toward the holster mounted between the layers of my anchor, where an electric derringer rested against my left thigh. If it were the person from the rail, I'd have to be careful. They were bigger than I was, both in height and breadth, and almost certainly equipped with some kind of anti-EMP mesh. Years ago, none of that would have mattered, but I took far too much perverse pleasure in cosseting my corpus, and was deliberately, woefully out of condition. If I wanted to slow them down, I'd have to not only get a shot off, but make sure it hit the right place. I had to take them by surprise. I broke into a run, darting across the remaining distance between myself and the far wall. I wrenched the left-hand door open and threw myself inside, letting the door swing wide, putting it between myself and my pursuer. They came barreling through after me in a maelstrom of anti-corrosion drape and dully glinting titanium. I hadn't given myself much of a lead, but it was enough. They flew past. They struck. Caught a handful of their anko and brought my pursuer to an abrupt and choking halt. As they gasped and struggled weakly, I pulled them close and pressed the gun to the back of their neck.
Move, and I send 100,000 volts into your personality core.
Gonna scramble my eggs, he is. Scramble them good. Scramble them again. Gonna stick his fingers in my skull and twirl it all around. And suck up my brain like pasta. Aren't you?
It was not the morph from the rail.
Who the fuck are you, then?
Who am I? I am who? I am who I was. I am now. Who are you?
Their shoulder twitched in my grip, neck arching back into the barrel of the gun, pressing into it hard enough to put dents in their skin. Skin that was, I saw, covered in a network of scars. And underneath them all, struck through with dozens of puckered lines.
Fuck.
A blue tattoo. An imprint stamped deep into their skin that, despite the attempt at obliteration, remained as vibrant and crisp as the day it had been applied. Exactly like mine.
Berserker. Who are you? Why are you following me?
She's got a screw loose, she does. I do. A screw or two. Two and two and two and two and all of them are you. Are me. I'm me. I am.
The person had the huge frame of an enforcer or an athlete. Or maybe a blue. But I gave my fist a shake, and their entire body rocked. Whatever physical refinement they might have once had, it was gone. They couldn't have weighed more than 45 kilos in my grip.
Stow it. I know you're a berserker.
Skin and hair of the hair, blood dim tide, shall we ride? Was once fur-caped, rage-fueled, before the scrambled egg brain, before the cutting room. Nothing now. Half of half. Less.
Bullshit.
I wrenched my arm out of my anko and shoved it in their face, displaying my own tattoo and its similar network of useless scars.
12th Earth.
One and all, watch them fall.
I let them go with a gentle shove and allowed the derringer to fall to my side. For once, Midas' touch, my assisted intuition, was silent, reading nothing at all from the person in front of me. But I didn't need it. They weren't a threat. They were a berserker, or had been. But however skilled a soldier they'd been, whatever unit they belonged to, whatever training they'd had, whatever choices they'd made, all that was long gone. This shrunken, terrified creature in front of me was far removed from their time as one of the Blues elites. Possibly even further than I was from mine. They could have been armed. Might have had a gun or a stim or a spike of poison. But I knew they weren't. Call it a different kind of intuition. Or call it pity.
You can never be too careful these days, you know?
Oh yes, of course. And off track. And careful, always careful. Have to be. You keep your eyes out, eyes on. Watch. Right, soldier? Watch, or the Metalmouth will come. and take you down and down and down and down into the cutting room again.
There was clearly something, several somethings muddled in their head, and I realized in their soma as well. The scarring I'd noticed went far beyond their neck, spread over their face and down their jaw onto the mask of the rebreather. Twin masses of lumpy, keloided scars covered their mastoid processes, skimmed the back edge of the mandible, and wrapped around to join the web of tissue that centered over their spine. Their spine, not their tattoo. It wasn't the remains of an attempt at removal, it was... I looked closer. It wasn't ink extraction, not injury, not stylistic choice. Something about all this, the ruin of a building, this individual, their strange manner of speech and stranger soma, felt wrong. Suspicion ran its frosty fingers over my skin and I shivered. I took a breath, smiled, and tried a different tack.
Look, sorry to disturb you, but I'm looking for someone. Do you think you might...
Can't disturb the disturbed, get it?
It's just that it seems that you're from around here.
Here and there and here. Screw loose, she can't remember nothing. Not since the Metalmouth. But here is safe as houses. Safe as houses. Safe and sound. Safe and home. A picket fence and a dog house out back. She's on watch, see? Watching. Like a dog. Like a watch dog. Pretty puppy's going to rip out your throat.
My mother's touch was prickling again. Suspicion began to coalesce into the glacial cloud of a hunch.
You said... she.
Me?
And then, of course, there was something, a very sharp-pointed something, resting gently against my jugular.
I don't want any trouble.
Are you alright? He didn't dose you?
Riot's rain. Righter than raining. Told you so. You gonna skewer him? Stick him real good. Stick him right in the neck. Right on his spine. He's a bear. Was a bear. Maybe gonna bait him?
Not if they're a very good boy. Who are you? Why are you here?
Roxanne Hyena-full, I presume.
Damn, she followed through. Girlie went and found herself a hero.
I can't speak to the hero, but she did hire herself another brain and a pair of eyes. Not that she needs more of those, you know. The girlie in question is the Triclopsian version of yourself, yes?
Another knockoff.
Their voice was startlingly similar to my client's. They'd clearly been intended to match, or at least as alike as two voices could be, given different sets of vocal cords and oral anatomies, and both exuded seductive sensuality. But while in my Roxanne, I was already starting to think of her as my Roxanne, lasciviousness was tempered with a sort of wry humour. There was none of that in this one. Their husky tone, its articulation slightly blurred by muzzle and canines, was a raw, animalistic energy, shaped into words and murmured into my ear. It was a voice made to elicit a particular effect, and my body was happy to oblige.
You're not the Prime,
gave you the impression I thought I was.
Oh, I see.
Do you?
With respect, Mix.
Roxy. She, same as the Triclops.
Of course. Could we perhaps continue this conversation without the threatened violence?
What? Oh,
The sharp thing in my neck was withdrawn, and I heard Roxy, step away.
Are we trusting them now? Then? We trusting them now?
Him, if you please.
we'll see.
Not Metalmouth, is he? And he ain't gonna take us down. Neither of us. Put together, he is. A nice all-in-one package, tip to toe to tip, and a fancy hat and boots. Do we got a name?
I've never asked the hat, but I'm Dakota Gold, private investigator.
Fancy hat, fancy name, fancy man. Me, I'm Screw Loose Lou to you. 'Cause I got 'em, see? Screws all jumbled up in there, given a good shake. Some is stuck tight, though. Locked in the old noggin. We and me and this old bone bag, or she, or they, or both, or one, as you like.
Very pleased to meet you.
Fancy man.
All right, Mr. Dakota Gold, private investigator. What exactly did precious Roxanne hire you to do? There's something wrong with us.
The morph and this Screw Loose Lou had taken me further into the swap shop. We'd gone through several nondescript hallways and into a room in much better repair. Someone had clearly been living there for quite some time and had managed to turn it into quite a cosy little nest. I wondered which of the mismatched pair bedded down here, or if they both did.
Wrong. And who's us, sorry?
The duplicates. Me, Roxanne, and Reproxanne, and...
She trailed off, and her eyes drifted over to her friend. She'd taken off her anchor, and without it the scarring was even more apparent. The blue bear branded on their neck, bigger and starker. It pulled at my focus, a magnet dragging metal shavings down my nerves.
Our brains, our personalities, really, they aren't right. Aren't the way they were before we were split.
How do you mean? She closed her eyes, fishing for words. But before she could find them, her friend spoke up.
Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. Brains like an egg. Sit, fall, smash into 1,000 pieces, all different. Look the same on the outside, don't they? You can tell them apart when they're whole, but they break each one and smash them up, and they're special, aren't they? Broke in their own way.
Yeah. It's different for each of us, the bit that's been broken. You've got to understand, Mr. Gold, I feel wrong. inside my head. It's not like sleeving into a new soma. That feels like putting on new shoes. Strange, a little uncomfortable, but walk around in them for a little while and you barely notice they're there. I just get angry or excited or curious or engaged, and there's nothing else. No space for anything else, just that one emotion filling every corner of my personality, no ramp up. That's not... It's all fight or flight. Every feeling, every emotion, it's stimulus, immediate, overwhelming response. I swear I can feel the soma dumping hormones into its bloodstream. I wasn't like that before. I know I wasn't, not in anybody.
Either she was telling the truth, or she was a hell of a liar. In that way, she was exactly like my client.
Reproxanne, the simulacrum, she seems all right at first. She knows who she is, can have a conversation, remember what happened to her yesterday or last week. She can't read or write or, as far as we can tell, make any sense at all of written symbols of any kind. I'm damn sure that Roxanne Prime could, your Roxanne can, I can, but she can't. We tested extensively, Mr. Gold, over several days. Sometimes she can't even pass drawings if they're too simple, too much like symbols.
Hold on. Several days?
We stayed here, the three of us, for about a week. Needed to be sure we understood what had been done to us before we decided what to do next. And at that point, we weren't sure where else we could go.
You were here for a week? How long... Forgive me. How long have you...
Existed. 27, 28 days, maybe?
No. I don't... I'd been led to believe that significantly less time had passed.
Yes, well, that brings me to what's wrong with precious Roxanne. Since we woke up, her ability to make memories has been severely compromised.
I'd sincerely appreciate some clarification as to the meaning of severely compromised in this situation.
What do you think it means, fancy man? Sometimes it sticks, don't it? Sometimes no.
All right, sure. But which bits exactly stick?
Oh, no rhyme, no reason. Mixed up, just like screw loose here. Except she, me, we all keep it all. Every bit of it. And she, the other, the looky-alike, she gets it let go, some of it at least.
For the most part, I pride myself on my patience. But I found that the longer they talked, the more this screw-loose tested it. I turned very deliberately towards Roxy.
Would you mind explaining the explanation?
As far as we can tell, her memory is entirely intact up to the point when we woke up here. After that, it's still active.
I could feel a headache starting in my temples.
And how are we defining selective? Would you remember hiring me?
Yes. Probably.
Probably.
She remembers things she does, or things she's chosen to do, and some things that happen to her. But the timeline gets mixed up. What happened when? How long between?
Her thinking she'd woken up yesterday, for example.
Exactly. That was the first clue what her wrongness was. Every day was the day after we woke.
This complicates matters.
An almost unconscionable understatement.
Let me see if I understand this correctly. You are 3 distinct iterations of the same individual, the prime of which is elsewhere. You woke up in this abandoned building that was once a soma clinic roughly a month ago, but with significant changes in your personality cores relative to the person you remember being. Am I recounting this accurately so far?
You are.
And it seems as though you believe you have been... what? Edited? Somehow?
Yes. It's the only thing that fits.
It's not possible, love.
I know. I don't know.
Right. I'm a PI, sweetheart. Not some hack science fiction flimsy writer. If you're not going to tell me the truth, how about you don't bother saying anything, yeah?
They did something to us. Our person, not just our bodies, were different than we were when we were Roxanne Prime.
Gun time. Slice and dice. Pull out your heart. Pull out your cord. Twist up the wires. Put it back. It's not good enough. Pull it out and try again.
Look, enough of this. I may not know a lot about neurosomatics, but I do know that personalities cannot be edited. The technology doesn't exist.
Tech doesn't stop. Nor them that make it.
I don't know anymore, Mr. Gold.
All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty. Couldn't put Humpty together again. Humpty.
This whole conversation was getting a little too hypothetical for my comfort. It was time to bring it back to more familiar territory.
Right. Horses and men aside, why don't you tell me what really happened? The day of the glitch.
Roxy shot another look at Screwloose. They gave her an almost imperceptible nod in return. At some point, I'd need to contact my connection in the Blues Records department and see what I could dig up about that particular enigma.
I'd taken an engagement with Archer Garrison, freelance. I'd had Archer as a client before, though that one had been arranged by Valentine. You do know the veterinarian, correct?
I've heard of him.
I took this as my first independent engagement because it was uncomplicated. Archer's sweet. Dull as scuffed aluminium and not very adventurous, but sweet. We were scheduled for dinner, a show, and an evening of facilitated relaxation. From previous experience, that meant dropping glamour, then spending a few hours testing the limits of his creativity in bed. It's nothing to write home about, but he pays well, and I knew what to expect. And I'd used this swap shop before.
This one? The one we're standing in?
The one that used to be here, yes. I think it is, or it used to be run by a friend of Valentine's before whatever happened to it.
I made a second mental note. This time, to ask Val what exactly he knew about the abandoned swap shop.
I thought everything was going smoothly. Then...
You experienced the glitch.
Well, I heard something. One of the texts said something. I couldn't understand the words at all, but I knew they were scared, and then my whole body just froze, and nothing worked, and I couldn't move, and I couldn't even close my eyes, but I was there, I was awake, I was conscious, and I knew something had gone wrong, but I couldn't say anything, couldn't blink, couldn't twitch, and I knew I was going to die there, and my core was going to short out, and I'd just vanish into vapor, and there'd be nothing left.
Hey, how many hands?
2.
How many feet?
4.
How many eyes?
2.
Move the hands. Move the feet. Close the eyes. And just breathe.
It's all right.
Breathe again.
I'm fine now.
Breathe again. Open the eyes. How many you?
1. That's what I mean, Mr. Gold. As soon as I start to feel any emotion, it all becomes so much, and I just
How many you?
1. Thank you.
Can't unbreak the eggs. Gotta make 'em into omelettes.
And then I woke up here. All 3 of us did. Not here, exactly, in the big room. We were just sitting there. 3 chairs. New ones, I think. Or at least clean.
And you're sure this is the same clinic as the one you began in?
Of course I'm sure. I haven't lost any memories, Mr. Gold.
That you're aware of?
I have not. The 3 of us figured out who we were immediately, but knowing the who didn't explain the how, or what we should do next. And that's when Screwloose found us.
And who exactly is she?
She can talk for herself, thanks, fancy man. Brain may be cracked, but she ain't died of it yet.
Yes, right. Sorry. Who are you then?
Not who am I, more who I used to be.
Fine. Then who did you used to be?
Dunno.
Then why did you tell me to...
'Cause you saw the bear, didn't you? Used to wear the skin. You did, I did, we did. Not no more. Can't even see her. Vanished, didn't they? But she ain't gone. That's what matters, ain't it? The bear who I was, who was I. No, who was... Not who is. 'Cause now, I'm Screwloose Lugh, old Lugh. Lost her screws. And herself. And where is she now? I live here. And there. And, 'cause this is where the cutting room is. See, this is where they take you when it's time to just scramble those brains.
Tell him what you told us about Metalmouth? About this place?
Metalmouth takes you to the cutting room. Keeps you all quiet so you don't go yelling, waking up the neighborhood. You take you from here. Sometimes take me, Tony. Tried to leave once, I did. Got away. A bit, and then it's Metalmouth again. Slap on a patch and screw loose, she goes to sleep. And there's no screaming till they're done. And she all cut up again. And here, back here. Always here. They leave you here when they're done. Left them here. First time, there were 3 of them. Mostly just the one. Mostly they wake up and wander off, or wake up and fall over dead, or don't wake up at all.
Most of them? You mean others have been left here?
It's what I said, ain't it? Metalmouth ain't here, and then he is, and they're all wrapped up, and sits them down, and he's gone again. It's a great big black bug. They let him go, the other ones that run. Only old Screwloose has to stay. Only Screwloose gets cut on again, and again, and again, and again, and again, and again, and again.
How many hands?
And again. 2.
How many feet?
2.
How many you?
1. 1. One.
You're okay.
Right. All right. I try. I've tried. I try. And I try to help them, but the ones that get left are the ones that wake up. They don't see, or they see and run, or they fight, or they see, run, and fight. They think I work with Metalmouth, maybe. Or maybe just scared. But then they're gone. No one stayed till her. She knew, and had the words to tell the others. And they all stayed for a while, and then they left. But she stayed.
My mind's touch had woken up during her rather confused monologue, and had slowly escalated into full alert. Contrary to the distinct lack of sub-perceptual cues she'd given off before, now they were producing a veritable torrent.
So this Metalmouth appears from somewhere and leaves unconscious people here in this building. And the people are in bad shape when they wake up.
If they wake up.
If they wake up, right. And how long has this been going on?
Screwloose's face contorted, eyebrows drawn together, mouth pursed, her lips stretching oddly where the scar tissue tightened the skin.
Since I fought the bear, yeah. Huh.
And how long has that been?
They took me back once, and then once again, down to the cutting room, and brought me back once, and then once, and then once again, and there have been people since then, left and woken, run and dead, and then I run and come back and run, and then it's cutting time, and so we have slept and woken and ate and...
Time doesn't work for her. Like writing didn't work for Reproxanne. Whatever they did to us, they did to her too, but worse.
I see.
But I didn't. Not in the slightest. What possible connection could there be between these four? My Roxanne, this Roxanne, Screw Loose Lugh, and the so-called Metalmouth. Who even was Metalmouth? And what was this cutting room? I could feel the shape of sense in what they said. Meaning was clearly present, but just out of reach. They knew something important. But the only way they had to relay it was in a language I didn't speak. I was no closer to finding my client's corpus. Was now, in fact, looking for yet another version, Roxanne Prime. If none of the three that had woken up here were the original self. That could mean both her personality and body were walking around somewhere. Maybe even together. And if that were true, did I still have a job? When she hired me, the implication had been that the client expected me to find her body without a current resident.
Someone did this to us, Mr. Gold. To all three of me and Lugh and however many others before us. We want to know who. And how we can stop them from doing it again. Lugh and I, we've been trying to catch them at it. They always come back here to this place. We wait and we watch.
Too smart they are. Metalmouth and the black bugs. No, we've got a guard dog now. They ain't come back. Ain't even taken Screw Loose once.
Finding them, whoever they are, that is the job. What you were hired to do. Precious Roxanne might not have remembered enough to tell you that, but it's the truth. And I want to know if you intend to do it. We can pay more if that's what it takes.
Her words, her intensity, her eyes. They were also very human against the striped fur of her face. The thing that the first Roxanne had woken inside me became more aware, began to bloom under the gentle sunlight and warmth of Roxy's hope. Damned if I didn't want to help her too. To help all of them. And if that made me some kind of hero, so be it.
I'm not interested.
Please, Rox, just give me 5 minutes.
Go away.
The Sangvi Consumer Hotel on Spoke 22 seemed to be among the better of its kind, at least from the outside. It occupied a cubic block, a vast, hulking presence throwing the rest of the Spoke into shadow. Mercifully, the unrelenting expanse of its wall was broken at regular intervals by glimmering windows. The street itself was largely free of litter, and no more dirty than any habitation zone. Despite the lateness of the hour, there were still people about. Altogether, this version of my client seemed to be doing rather nicely for herself. But she refused to see me.
It is vitally important that we speak. It's regarding your siblings.
I know what it's regarding. I'm still not interested.
I'd gotten her address from Roxy. The Morph had warned me that this Roxanne was touchy. But even then, it seemed like she'd been underselling this iteration's disposition.
Please, I only have a few questions. Meet me downstairs. I know that it's easy to get the wrong impression talking over an intercom.
What part of no do you fail to understand?
Roxanne, you don't understand. You could be in danger.
No, I will be in danger if you do not leave me alone.
Even through the crackling distortion of the cheap intercom, I could hear fear suffusing every word. A good deal more fear than seemed appropriate, even given her unusual circumstance.
Has someone threatened you?
You need to go. Now.
No, come on, answer, damn it. Who's there? Hey.
There was someone down the street, half concealed by a telecom call box. A bulky shape, draped in an oversized anchor.
I can see you. Let's have a chat.
My Midas touch began to scream at me. It could have been anyone. Some shift worker on their way home. A delivery person bringing someone a late-night meal. It could have had nothing to do with the case. Hell, with the population size of Cloud City, it was likely it had nothing to do with it. But it did. Whoever this person was, they were involved, and they had been listening. The touch told me so, and it was never wrong. I started towards the figure. Casual, non-threatening, hands up. But before I'd gotten more than a few steps, whoever it was turned and ran away, along the wall of the hostel and around the corner. I wanted to follow. Started to, before catching myself. I needed to talk to Reproxanne.
Pick up, damn it, pick up!
I was there for a good 3/4 of an hour. My finger didn't leave the buzzer. I even gave it a pound on the door a few times. No one answered. As the night deepened, the cold became more intense, until I was in a very real danger of freezing. I hesitated to leave without questioning Reproxanne, but I also preferred to keep all my extremities. My desire to avoid frostbite dictated that I hire a hack back to the office. That, and the fact that the client paid expenses. The nearest aircar pinged at 15 minutes away. Not ideal, but better than trudging back through the entire sector. Especially while trying to twist this case into a sensible shape. I pulled my rebreather close around my face, tucked my hands into the front of my anko, and settled in to wait in the shadow of a zone marker. The problem wasn't that I couldn't think of people who might be grabbing dream girls or boys. There's always someone out there who thinks they're someone's ideal fantasy. And they are. Up to a point. Go to a provider like Val and you'll get set up with anything you like. But that's expensive. And that requires things like ID, references, and security deposits. So some would rather hire cheap, and never mind what the provider does or doesn't want. Not everyone goes into that line of work because they've chosen to. And it's go along with a client or starve, well, most people will go for the first option. But this didn't feel like someone living out a fantasy. There were too many victims for one. Even allowing for Screwloose's shaky grasp of time and numbers, I thought it was safe to assume there'd been at least a dozen people dropped at the swap shop before the Roxannes. And assuming Valentine's memory was accurate, well, All these drops had occurred in a roughly 9-month period. Despite what the stories and digitals would have you believe, there are not 5 active serial killers in Cloud City at any given time. I'd be surprised if there's even 2. And even if there were, 12 people in 9 months? It's absurdly prolific. Besides, it just didn't feel right. So not someone doing it for self-gratification. But what other options were there? Something else Valentine had said swam to the surface. The rumours surrounding Archie Garrison, Roxanne's final client. The dream people he hired wound up damaged. It could fit the apparent facts, I supposed, if you squinted. But it didn't make sense. Garrison was the son of one of the richest men in Cloud City. Why would he care if any one dream girl didn't meet his expectations? He could just keep hiring them until one did. Hell, he could see a different professional every day and not put a dent in his trust fund. There was nothing forcing him to use them for future engagements, much less grab them to do something to them and leave them in an abandoned building. It didn't make sense. My brother's words echoed in my ears again.
The very wealthy are a different breed, Dakota. So different that they might as well no longer be called human. They live in their own reality, one entirely divorced from so much we assume to be basic, fundamental parts of life. Don't try to work out what they're thinking. Watch what they do.
I didn't know what Archie Garrison did. Finding out will be the next logical step.
Got $1? Sorry, mate. Got nothing on me.
Stay the fuck out of shit that don't concern you, detective. I'm only gonna warn you once, then things are gonna get real serious.
In the few seconds before my head collided with the corroded metal of the borough marker, I saw my attacker's face. Blacked out eyes, EMP mesh under the skin, and reflecting dully in the sodium lamps, a titanium intake valve where the mouth should be.
Scanning for passenger. No passenger found. Please enter the vehicle now. Personality core.
Dakota Gold.
Located. Welcome aboard Hackney Cab Aircar Services. Please clearly state your destination.
Tavern Tower.
Thank you.
Dakota Gold.
Please enjoy your ride and thank you for using Hackney Cab Aircar Services.
This has been Cloud City Sonata, Part 2, Haptics, in D flat major. Written and directed by Ash Seguinte, and edited by Erik Seguinte. Theme composed by Amy Young. Featuring Emma Laslett as Roxy, Moira Daykin as Screw Loose Lugh, Michael E. Fremantle as Valentine Voight, Emma Laslett as Reproxanne, and Vic Collins as Dakota Gold, with additional voices by James Bigg, Kirsty Woolven, and Ari Ingalls. To find out more about the show, visit dakotagold.lawofnames.com. Tune in next week for Part 3, Vivo Glissando along the vagus nerve.
Hello, my name is Georgia Cook, one half of the writing team behind the Holmwood Foundation, a found-footage horror fiction podcast written as a sequel to the novel Dracula. Our story follows Jeremy Larkin and Maddie Townsend, two co-workers at the mysterious Holmwood Foundation, as they are possessed by the ghosts of Jonathan and Mina Harker and embark on a road trip across the country carrying Dracula's severed head in an effort to achieve their ghost's wishes, to stop Dracula once and for all. We are about to launch our Kickstarter for Season 1, but you are able to listen to our trailer and pilot episode for free wherever you get your podcasts, including Spotify, Acast, and Apple Podcasts.